ramène une vague qui n'est pas encore cassée. Regarde, celle qui arrive, elle est parfaite.
T'inquiète pas, j'ai rien dit aux parents pour la nuit dernière.
Hello and welcome to Arts 24. It's time for our weekly dive into French cinema, and for that I'm joined by our critic Manon Kerjean. Hi Manon.
Hello.
We'll begin with In Waves by Phuong Mai Nguyen, which was selected both at Cannes and in Annecy's International Animation Film Festival. Manon, what did you think of this one?
So In Waves is the animated adaptation of A.J. Dungo's graphic novel, which sold more than 100,000 copies in France.
Wow.
It tells the story of two teenagers in LA who fall deeply in love until the young woman is diagnosed with cancer. And Dungo wrote the book after losing his own partner, Kristen, to the disease, and that emotional honesty really comes through on screen. I saw the film at the opening of the Critics' Week in Cannes, and I was extremely moved by it. And judging by the tears in the screening room, I certainly wasn't the only one. Here is a glimpse.
À mon signal, tu rames, ok? T'es prêt?
Kristen, attends!
C'est le moment, vas-y!
Non, attends! Attends!
So I guess shifting something from a book format to the big screen is quite a challenge. How did the director approach it visually? Is it quite different from the graphic novel?
Yes, it is. That was one of the biggest creative choices. Rather than copying the style of the original drawings, the director created a visual world that's much more colorful, especially when it comes to the ocean. She wanted the waves to feel almost sensory, as if the audience could physically experience them on screen. And that part works quite well. The result is absolutely stunning, with a Californian light inspired by some of David Hockney's paintings.
Oh, wow, it does look gorgeous indeed. And we heard a little bit of it in that clip. The music plays a big role here too.
Absolutely. The score is composed by Oclou and Rob, who created a beautiful, intimate soundscape. Oclou is one of the leading figures of the French experimental pop scene, while Rob has a long career composing for film and television, from Rebecca Zlotowski's movies to the spy series The Bureau. And their music works perfectly here because it supports the emotion without overwhelming it.
Sounds like a really well-crafted piece, all in all. Well, we continue now with La Chaleur, literally the heat in English. This is a psychological thriller adapted from Victor Gestin's 2019 novel. It's directed by Stéphane Demoustier. He had great success recently with The Great Arch. Manon, it feels like the title, La Chaleur, the heat, alone is very relevant this week here in France.
Yes, it is. But unfortunately, I don't think the heat translated into much tension on screen for me. Despite a premise that's actually quite strong, we follow Marwan, a 17-year-old spending his last day at a campsite in the south of France during a heat wave. The day before, he accidentally killed someone and buried the body on the beach, and now he fears the rising tide could reveal his secret at any moment. Here is a glimpse.
Putain, ça! C'était bien hier soir? T'es rentré tôt?
T'es un copain d'Oscar? Il a pas dormi là. Je sais pas où il est. Si tu veux, tu peux l'attendre ici.
T'inquiète pas, j'ai rien dit aux parents pour la nuit dernière.
Wow, some very heavy subject matter there, and a very young cast we see.
Yes, and there are no familiar faces in the teenage roles, which is quite refreshing. But what Demoustier seems to be mostly interested in here is portraying today's French teenagers growing up in a very anxious world, and you can definitely feel that fragility on screen. The opening sequence is very symbolic, for example. You see young people diving into the sea, but in a way that feels both beautiful and a bit brutal. So it already hints at something more disturbing underneath.
Yeah, some shadows and dark in there indeed. Well, next to something very different, we're going behind the scenes of France's most prestigious theatre company, La Comédie Française. Also the title of this film. Take a look.
J'ai pas mon badge.
Aïe.
Mais tu veux pas m'ouvrir?
Ah ben non, pour rentrer, faut un badge. Dans 2h30, vous me levez ce rideau.
Ça va être une cata.
Quoi?
Tu me casses les couilles!
J'entends rien. Vous parlez tous en même temps.
Stop, stop, stop! Vous m'avez dit une brume!
Ça va être génial.
Je l'ai, elle était dans mon pantalon.
I think we can all identify with that workplace drama. Even France's greatest theatre company doesn't escape the bureaucracy. So what do you think about this backstage comedy? Did it win you over?
Well, partially. La
Okay.
Comédie Française follows this young stage director whose very first production is due to premiere in just a few hours when everything suddenly starts going wrong. Actors are late, technical problems pile up, but there's one golden rule at the Comédie Française: you never cancel a performance. It's an enjoyable film, especially if you're curious about what happens behind the curtain, but I never found it quite as funny as it wants to be.
And I recognised a couple of the actors there. They are actually from the Comédie Française, right?
Exactly. In fact, every single role is played by members of the Comédie Française, and the script is also based on dozens of interviews with actresses and actors who shared their own stories and anecdotes. So many of the situations are inspired by real events, even if they've been exaggerated for comic effect, of course. And the film also takes us somewhere audiences almost never get to see. We spend as much time backstage as we do on stage, exploring the dressing rooms and the hidden corridors of the theater. So it almost feels like a guided tour behind the scenes of one of France's most iconic cultural institutions. So just for this reason, I think it's worth it to see on the big screen.
It's true. It really is a monument of culture here in Paris. Definitely. I should imagine that filming there isn't that straightforward.
Not at all. The opportunity was actually quite exceptional. The Salle Richelieu happened to be available for a few days. So the filmmakers wrote the screenplay in just 2 months, and they shot the entire movie in only 3 weeks, while the Comédie Française was still rehearsing and performing around them.
Oh, bravo. That's maybe where some of that frantic energy comes from. Well, finally, from a monument of French theatre to a monument of cinema now, one of France's greatest filmmakers is returning to the big screen this summer. Jacques Tati, of course, his entire body of work being released in newly restored 4K versions. Manon, why does his cinema still resonate today?
Well, because Jacques Tati was far more than a comedy director. He was an extraordinary observer of modern life. He created this famous character, Monsieur Hulot, and he explored everything from mass tourism to consumerism and our growing obsession with technology. And these films made 60 or 70 years ago still feel incredibly relevant today.
Still definitely things we're talking about. So what's special about these re-releases then?
Well, 6 of these feature films have been restored in 4K, which highlights the incredible level of detail in his work. Tati's films are built around visual gags and carefully crafted sound design, so every frame is packed with little jokes you might have missed the first time. And he was a true perfectionist, so these restorations really do justice to that precision.
Wow, amazing. And for people who don't know Jacques Tati's cinema, where would you suggest that they start?
I would probably say Monsieur Hulot Holiday. It is the first appearance of his most iconic character, and it's a perfect introduction to his style. There's very little dialogue. The humor is almost entirely visual, so it's surprisingly universal. But if you want to see just how visionary he was, then Playtime is essential. It's one of the most ambitious films ever made in France. He built an entire city to make the film, and it still feels extremely modern in the way it looks at cities and design.
Wow, world building indeed from Jacques Tati. Thank you so much for that roundup, Manon. We'll leave you with a final look at that retrospective, a great way to get to know one of the most unique and quirky cinematic talents of the 20th century. Well, do check in with us next time here on Arts 24 for more movies, arts and culture.
It's fragile, yet powerful. To earn it takes honesty, commitment, rigor, and independence. It's a cornerstone of democracy. It's vital to everyone. And without it, freedom of thought is impossible. Trust, our reason for being here. France 24, liberté, égalité, actualité.
The Declaration is signed here on August 2nd, 1776.
250 years after its independence, Donald Trump wants to leave his mark on U.S. history.
Trump administration tried to shut down this site here.
Tell the truth!
For our history!
The White House's goal is clear: to impose its vision of America.
That what matters most to Trump is Trump.
We're just not used to this in democracy.
Opposition is growing, the courts are resisting, and America is divided.
Congress is the only group that can remove the name or make a change.
You know what? If it was Joe Biden doing it, the people on the right would be mad about it. So,
watch 250 years of U.S. history revisited on France 24.